What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shanna and I am a recovering addict. I have been sober since September 27th, 2016, and today I do finally want to get back into some recovery talk and discuss step 4, which I should have done way back in April, but life happened. So if you want to learn about step 4, what I did, and a couple of other ways that you can do this step, then just keep on watching. Okay, so as you heard in the intro, we are going to be discussing step 4, which is made a searching and fearless moral inventory. So what does that mean? That means we look at our past and we look at certain things. So mainly, who are we mad at? Why are we mad at them? What part did we have in that? Because it does take two. The only exception to that rule is anything that happened to you during your childhood. Okay, so there are a couple of ways that you can actually work this step. I think most people are familiar with one specific way, which is what we call the Big Book 4th step. But there are some other ways listed in Melody Beatty's Codependence Guide to the 12 Steps. I am also a codependent, which is why I have this book. And she lists a couple of things. One you can do is just an inventory of codependent characteristics. This one doesn't really apply so much to addiction. Melody also talks about a general biographical sketch, meaning look at your past, take a look at your childhood, see what comes to mind, where there's certain patterns that happen, it's really just looking for patterns in how your life has moved along. You'll be surprised, no matter which version of these you do, you will find patterns in your life. Another one is a Big Book 4th step. I think that is what most people are familiar with, and we will get into that as soon as I'm done going through these, because that is the one, I've actually done 2, and that is one of the ones that I did. Also looking at just things that you've done wrong is a way to do it, and you can just journal it without getting the big graph that you'll see in the Big Book 4th step. My issue with this is if you're going to do that, do make sure to also do things that you've done well. The 4th step can feel very much like you're beating yourself up, and that's not how it should be. So if you have a good sponsor, they should tell you to look at things that are good in your life or positive characteristics. We don't want this to be a shame spiral. Shame leads to acting out or using again. Regardless, whatever 4th step version you're going to do, first of all, discuss it with your sponsor, and second of all, check in with them, which you're going to have to in step 5 anyway, so just make a habit of it now. You can also look at wrongs others have done to you, but again, you need to make sure to look at what was your part. So anyway, those are the different types that you can do. Them separated out like that is a little weird to me, only because a Big Book 4th step will have you do all of that in one. But it is up to you and your sponsor what works best for you with your relationship with them. So as I said earlier, I have done 2 different types. I did a Big Book 4th step, and I did one where I just looked at my assets and liabilities. But let's do the Big Book 4th step first. You can find any of these types of templates on Google. You literally just Google AA 4th step. I'm not an alcoholic, but any 12-step program is based on Alcoholics Anonymous, so that's why we use this. This has multiple pages, as you can see, because you are taking a thorough and moral inventory. So it's not just oh, I was bad here. Okay, why were you bad? What did you do? And that's exactly what this does, and it looks at different areas of your life. So the first one, as you can see, is who did I harm? Okay? In general, your top 4 are going to be mom, dad, partner, and any siblings you may have, because in our addiction, as well as in our codependency, we are harming people. So it's who was harmed, what did I do or fail to do that caused them harm, and then what did I do, like this column is which part of self caused the harm. So was it pride? Was it I spent too much money? Addicts tend to do that because we always, we're looking for the next drug, the next hit of alcohol. For my personal addiction, even though it wasn't substance abuse, it was buying certain things. Was it pride, ambition, competition. You know, what is the nature of my wrongs? You know, was I selfish? Was I dishonest? Was I inconsiderate? And you just kind of tick the boxes as you go along. You don't need to get in depth. You don't need to explain how you were selfish. You were just selfish. And then what should I have done instead? So you know right from wrong. You know what you should have done instead. Next. The next page is on sexual conduct. Did your addiction cause you to maybe cheat on your spouse, or maybe choose alcohol over your spouse, or in codependency, maybe use sex as a weapon? You would list those here, and it has the same type of grid. What did you do? Who did you hurt? What was the exact nature of your wrong? You know, were you selfish, dishonest? It kind of asks the same questions on each graph. You know, who else or who did you harm? If you cheated on your spouse, you would put who you had sexual contact with, what you did, and then who was harmed. This wouldn't be your spouse. Or it could be, you know, you withheld from your spouse, so they would fill up both boxes. And then what should you have done instead? You know what you should have done. Next, we have a fear inventory. As weird as that sounds, most addiction is rooted in fear. So when we're living in active addiction, we are in fear and we are very, very anxious. So fear is the greatest motivator of acting out in our addiction, whether it's using again, spending, even in codependency. Oh, I don't want that person not to like me. You're acting in fear. So we do the same thing. But with this one, you list who do you fear? And it's not just people. It can be, you know, I fear the judicial system. I fear church. Why are you afraid? What have you been relying on that has failed you? You know, have you been self-reliant, self-disciplined? The reason it has that is when you are in addiction or codependency, this is not an I program. You will not seek any sort of recovery just doing it on your own, because you've probably tried at this point to do it on your own and it's not working. So this is a we program. That's why we made a fearless and searching moral inventory. We asked God to take care of our problems. What were you doing here trying to mask this fear? And then what part does it affect? Why are you afraid? They don't word these very well, but basically, why are you afraid? Does it hurt your self-esteem? Is it hurting your pride? You know, are you fearful of the judicial system because you're afraid it's going to mess with your money? Next is everyone's favorite, the list of resentment. Who are we pissed off at? Like literally pissed off at? Probably again, the top 4 people will probably be your mom, dad, spouse, and siblings. But you can also list institutions. So I, for a very long time, was angry with the Catholic Church. It was on mine. I was very angry with my daycare provider. And then you list why you're angry. Obviously, there's not enough room here. You can add your own paper on the back if you want, but your sponsor may decide. Just list the big things you're pissed off about. And then here, what part of self was hurt or threatened? Did this person hurt your pride? Did they sexually abuse you? Did they affect your ambition? So you started to have self-doubt. Also, where were you to blame? What did you do wrong? You know, so again, if it was something that happened in childhood, like if you were sexually molested or if you were physically assaulted, obviously one of these is still hurt. If you were a child, there's nothing you could have done. That person was just awful. But in anything, if you were mad at your spouse because they said something horrible about you and it affected your pride and you went off and cheated, well, you cheated. That's where you went wrong. So that is how this one works. I think that's it. Yep, that is it. So it is a lot, but that is a typical big book 4th step. The other version I did, like I said, was just to list liabilities and assets. I went to a retreat in April of 2017. 17? Yes, April 2017. This one I just had to list, you can see my note up here, ones I've ever done. And as you can see, I had every single liability in my life, and the instructions were circle the liabilities you've ever had in your life. Resentment, fear, self-pity, self-justification, you know, that kind of thing. And then I had to star the ones that I had the most of. I had to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, like top 6, and I also had to list some that I felt needed to be listed. And then I had to go in later and actually place myself along the graph. I didn't do it on this one. I got a fresh sheet of paper, I think. I had to go and like list myself where I am now, because by the time I had done this, I had had 7 months of sobriety. So I had done not quite a bit of work, but a bit of work to get me closer to the assets. So it's not to say that your liabilities ever go away, which is why you go into step 6. I wanted to do this video because people make it sound like step 4 is this big deal. And I think for me it wasn't, because I had a therapist who made me kind of do this thing with my step 1. And I did not end up doing step 4 fully until April-ish, like March, April-ish of 2017. So I had some time to stop feeling shame. If you were doing this right away in your recovery, I can see why that would be difficult. I wanted to make this short and simple because I feel like people dwell on step 4 far too much. But whatever version of this you guys choose to do, make sure you go over it with your sponsor. They're really going to help you out. There's no shame. And step 5, you have to tell them and God anyway. So they're not going to judge you, because trust me, they've heard it all. Because if you're finding a good sponsor, they've been to enough meetings, they've done their own stuff, they have heard it all. They're not going to judge. And if they do, you need to find a new one. So that is my video on step 4. Much quicker than my other ones because I already have my face done. I did not want to do makeup and step 4 because I had a lot to say. And it would have been too distracting. Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in, and I was just gonna make this video about step 4, but then I realized if I did a video all on step 5, it would be literally all of 5 seconds. So I did kind of allude to it in the video. I did say, you know, you don't need to feel any shame doing step 4, because in step 5 you're gonna have to tell your sponsor anyway, and that is true. So step 5 is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So the idea is you do step 4 and then you tell your sponsor, preferably, I know not everyone has a sponsor, I know it's very difficult for some addictions, there might not be enough, you know, women or men, depending on what the program is, but ideally it would be a sponsor. However, you can do it with your therapist, you can do it with a religious person, pastor, priest, anyone that you trust enough with this information. And basically what you're going to do is just go ahead and go through however you chose to do step 4. That's why I say it should be a sponsor, because if you've been working step 4, ideally you would have a sponsor just to keep from any sort of shame spiral. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that. So steps 4 and 5 really can go together. Again, step 4 made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And then step 5, you admitted to God, to yourself, and to another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. So all that list of who you harmed is what you would admit to those people, and you would explain what you did and what you should have done instead of what you did. And you know, your sponsor should know all that stuff by now. So step 5 really isn't that big of a deal, so I didn't feel that it warranted a separate video. I hope to see you guys on the next one. Please do hit subscribe and that bell notification so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And please do also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Recovered Feminist. I will list previous videos up here somewhere. And please do comment down below if you have any questions. I do have an email listed below. You can always email me any questions about recovery topics or topics you want me to cover with recovery, like coping mechanisms or, you know, triggers. Anyway, guys, I love you, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!